Okay, get gassed because today we're talking about the proportion of gases in the Earth's atmosphere. Something you're going to come across every day. You're sitting surrounded by these gases right now, so why not learn a little bit about them? I'm Jono from Seneca. Thank you for joining me on this revision episode for your GCSE chemistry exam. Let's dive in. So, the key proportions of gases you need to know in the Earth's atmosphere are as follows: nitrogen, which is 78%, oxygen, 21%, CO2, 0.04%, argon comes in at less than 1%, and then other gases are also less than 1%. Now, this proportion of gases has stayed more or less the same for the past 200 million years, okay? And the small quantities of gases are noble gases, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. So water vapor is one of the things that contributes to those other gases. Now, these gases are really important. Let's start with nitrogen. It's the most abundant. Do we remember the percent? It's coming in at 78%. Okay. Now, what is nitrogen used for? It's a key component of proteins, which are essential for growth. Now, while it's abundant in the atmosphere, the producers found that the base of food chains are not able to exploit the source. Instead, they have to absorb nitrogen in the form of soluble nitrates from the soil. Okay, take a breath because now we're talking about some oxygen. Now, oxygen is a key reactant in respiration. That's a chemical reaction that takes place in all living cells, and it's where we get our energy from. Okay, as humans, we breathe oxygen into our lungs. And from here, it diffuses into our blood and is carried to the cells in our body. So a little bit of biology to spice up your chemistry revision. Now, what about carbon dioxide and water vapor? Now, those are some greenhouse gases, okay? We're going to be talking about more of that. We're going to be talking more about them in some future episodes, so make sure you check them out. But as a little introduction to whet your appetite, the greenhouse gases absorb and then re-radiate heat energy that is reflected off the Earth's surface. Now, that is what's called the greenhouse effect. If the greenhouse effect is too strong, that's when we get global warming, okay? Now, let's take it back a little bit, just a little, maybe like 4.6 billion years, and that's when we're going to talk about the early Earth's atmosphere. Now, we don't really have much evidence from that long ago, but the consensus view from all those really high up scientists is that for the first billion years of the Earth's existence, highly active volcanoes populated the surface, okay? And these erupted frequently, so the Earth was a little bit angry. And that released a ton of carbon dioxide. Now, scientists think that carbon dioxide dominated the early atmosphere in a similar way to modern day Mars and Venus, okay? Then, a little bit later, we got some cute little oceans and the volcanic activity reduced. Nitrogen slowly built up in the atmosphere, water vapor condensed from the oceans, as well as and then there were also smaller quantities of methane and ammonia. Now, the formation of oceans removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They act as sinks for carbon dioxide. And some of that dissolved carbon dioxide reacts with seawater to produce carbonate precipitates. And that was deposited as sediment. Isn't life fun? So, once dissolved in the oceans, some of the carbon dioxide reacts with seawater to produce what? Do you remember? It was carbonate precipitates, and that's what forms sediment. Okay, that was a lot of information, so let's review it real quick. The early Earth's atmosphere. Article 1. For the first billion years of the Earth's existence, there were highly active volcanoes that populated the surface. Then frequent volcanic eruptions caused the release of lots of carbon dioxide, and that gas dominated the early Earth atmosphere. Then we get a little bit more modern. The intense volcanic activity also produced lots of nitrogen, which accumulated in the atmosphere, and some water vapor. And that water vapor condensed to form the oceans. Those oceans act as a sink for carbon dioxide, so it removes it from the atmosphere. So love thy ocean, okay? So do we know which gas makes up about 20% of the Earth's atmosphere? Do you remember from the beginning? Is it argon? Is it carbon dioxide? It's oxygen. So let's go over the proportions of the key gases. Oxygen, 21%, nitrogen, 78%. Now, do you remember how many years ago the Earth formed? Approximately, just a casual 4.6 billion, okay? So when we're talking about the early atmosphere, we're talking about 4.6 billion years ago, okay? So, can we review those main gases in the Earth's atmosphere? Oxygen, carbon dioxide, noble gases, nitrogen, water vapor. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this episode. Hope it was useful. Keep up your revision. We're going to be talking about oxygen and carbon dioxide in the next episode, so make sure you check that out. Thanks for joining on this one.